this probably happens in every field, but in academia, there's a certain fantasy line that you would like to deliver once in your life. So Monday morning, I was in Washington, and I was about to go into the White House to be in the East Room for the signing of the presidential memorandum on stem cells, and my cell phone rang. I have a witness for this. This is a true story. And it was Arthur. And I got to say the line. I could have died, and happy after I got to say, Arthur, I'd really like to talk to you, but I'm about to see the president. And he said, oh, that's fine. You can call me later. So at the risk of sounding like a pen booster, but where better place to be a pen booster than here, it occurred to me while Anjan was talking that I've been on a program about the brain with 3 members of this faculty today, somewhere other than Penn. Anjan and I first met Anjan right after I got to Penn a couple of years ago at the Library of Congress at an event. Steve Morse and I were in Minneapolis last week on the same panel, and Martha and I have done multiple events together. So that's just by way of saying that Penn really is in the forefront of the brain, and the faculty that you're hearing from are not only obviously amazing teachers, but very much in demand as speakers and investigators. So now we're going to go to the dark side. Some of what I'm about to talk to you about has been anticipated by my colleagues, but I want to dig a little deeper into the role of the emerging neuroscience and neurotechnology in national security. So about 2.5 years ago, I published this book called Mind Wars. There's always a backstory to a book. Bill Sapphire, who is the president of the Dana Foundation, which is a big contributor to neuroscience. Probably some of my colleagues have Dana Foundation support. Asked me if I was interested in writing a book about national intelligence and the brain because he knew that I was interested in this funky stuff, national security and bioethics. And so I actually, I think this was 2005, and I actually wasn't sure that I'd be able to write this book because, of course, if it's security, intelligence related, how can you get the data, right? So I proceeded to engage in a very sophisticated research technique that only a full professor at Penn would know how to do. I went to Google. This is true. And I typed in DARPA. What's DARPA? The Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, and neuroscience. And I came up with tens of thousands of pages. And at that moment, I knew I could write the book. Because then it was just a matter of connecting the dots, as they say in Washington, between the contracts that were being led, the requests for applications that were being led by DARPA concerning neuroscience to see what the national security community is interested in the brain. So that's a little bit of the backstory of Mind Wars. I'm actually only going to talk to you about a corner of Mind Wars. But I want to kind of make an argument. So dual use in the language of the Institute of Medicine refers to benevolent and malevolent possibilities. That's dual use. So I want to say that through some history, that there's long been a two-way street actually between the brain science of the past and the national security establishment in this country. It actually goes back at least to World War I, when the first IQ tests, the Stanford-Binet tests, were developed by the Army. In the post-World War II era, 40s through 50s, early to mid-60s, the directionality of this knowledge was mostly, interestingly, from the national security world to the civilian world. And I'm going to give you an example of that. And I think now it just really occurred to me as I've done more and more of this work and been more involved with the intelligence community, the direction of this information flow has somewhat reversed. And now the intelligence world is interested in what's going on in pharma and what's going on in the labs of my colleagues. And they want to bring it back into their work. So I'll describe how this goes. Just to orient you to the general idea behind Mind Wars, where this is an image from what movie? Exactly, Manchurian Candidate. This is Frank Sinatra on the left. being brainwashed into thinking he can sing, I guess. Oh, I love Frank. I know. I do like Frank. This is, of course, Uncle Joe behind him. And if you remember, the general concept of the Manchurian Candidate was not the remake, the really bad remake a few years ago, but the classic based on the novel, that this mysterious Oriental power was basically brainwashing POWs, American POWs, probably during the Korean War, into becoming sort of assassin robots that would be triggered. So that's the general idea. Now, the idea of brainwashing starts in the early 50s. This is a movie that's made in the early 60s. It often takes popular culture a little while to catch up with what's going on in the first world. And brainwashing, of course, was a very popular concept. I grew up with it. It turns out that when our POWs who signed false confessions, when they had been captured by the North Koreans and we used to call them the Red Chinese. We don't call them that anymore. It's not polite, I guess. But when they were captured, they signed false confessions. They said treasonous things. And I'm sorry, you can't quite make this graph out on the left, but in 1957, an Army social scientist debriefed many of these men when they came back. And he categorized the kinds of techniques that were used to get them to say these things. It turned out it wasn't anything very secretive. They were just really good at doing certain things like humiliating them or sleep depriving them. Now, this 1957 list of techniques that was gleaned from debriefing our men coming back from these POW camps in Korea were then used in 2002 in Guantanamo by people who were training the interrogators of detainees in Guantanamo. And this chart was actually released by Senator Levin at a hearing in the spring of last year. So the irony shouldn't be lost on us that some of these techniques, including humiliation, including sexual humiliation, degradation, were learned from the other guys and then were applied on our part.